Hello there, everyone. Welcome to this week's Facebook Live. Really glad you could join us today. So we've moved into the big time now. We have a new microphone set up, we have new lighting, we have a new camera situation, and we have a crew in South Carolina all on standby to make sure that we're running properly and looking good. So if you have any issues, please let us know. We're running with some new equipment this time, but we're pretty excited about it. So shout out to San Francisco, South Carolina crew today. So I subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, and I do that mostly. I love the newspaper anyway, but I particularly like the off-duty, it's called, on Saturdays. It's their style issue. And this week they had a short article about what people are doing to make themselves feel better while we're staying home more than we usually are. And I thought it was pretty interesting. For instance, people are getting out their best china and their best crystal and eating with their best flatware. Changing the sheets to their best sheets, even ordering some new ones. Getting flowers out of the garden, ordering flowers to be delivered, to have flowers around the house and on the table. And I decided today that I would just, dress up a little bit, still have on jeans, of course, but I don't have on my usual tennis shoes. I have on some pink brogues, and I have on my E.T. with the little black band, and I have on an opal jacket. Now, I haven't worn a jacket in quite a while, but mostly what I'm going to tell you is that I put on my best jewelry. I have on my most favorite necklace and my favorite watch and a couple of little bracelets, and it just made me feel like today when I got up, I'm going to work, I'm going to dress up just a little bit. It made me feel a lot better. So get that jewelry out of those jewelry boxes and put them on today, even with your sweats. All right, I'm going to reach back and talk about one thing that I addressed last week. We talked about sewing buttonholes directionally, and particularly in those areas where the presser foot is sitting on a couple of seam allowances in this stand and collar area. And our friend Roberta emailed me after last week's Facebook Live and said, well, she had a solution for this buttonhole. Instead of having to sew it from the bottom to the top, as I suggested last week, she just puts this buttonhole in before she even puts the collar and stand on. And I thought that was brilliant. I've never thought about that. How simple is that, to get your buttonholes done early, because usually we wait until later. And so think about that. And she doesn't bother to put the buttonhole on the stand. She may put the button, but not the buttonhole. I'm a little bit of a purist, and I'm still going to probably try to put that buttonhole there, but it's totally permissible to leave the buttonhole off, and I know somebody standing in this space, her name is Erin, who doesn't put that buttonhole in her shirts either. So, you have my permission. All right, the other thing, let's see, I guess that's everything from reaching back. All right, today I'm going to talk about some pants, some slim pants. And both of these styles of pants are the kinds of pants that you can wear as sweats at home, made in the right fabric, or you can go all the way to a really dressy pant made in something like a Ponte knit. So I'm going to talk about the Helix pants and the pencil pants. When they're hanging up, they look pretty similar. They both have slim legs. They both have somewhat of an elastic type waistband, although they're made a little bit differently. But both of these are our version of just a nice slim pants, and I'm going to show you later what I would wear with these kinds of pants. The distinguishing factor really is the waistband on this. On the Helix pants, you can see that there's an exposed elastic, 1.5-inch knit elastic that's on the inside of this pair of pants, and it's about 1 inch smaller, cut 1 inch smaller than the actual waistband. So it's drawn in a little bit, gives you a little bit of a snug fit. And there are darts in the front and the back of this pant. So there's a little more shaping to this pant and a little more smooth fit. The legs are slightly fuller than the pencil, but barely. For the pencil pants, we have a 1.5-inch casing at the top for the waistband. but there's only 3/4 inch elastic inside of that casing, and it's actually sewn to the casing with a zigzag. You can't see the zigzag stitch on the outside of the pants, and again, that elastic helps bring that in. But this is more of a yoke, I guess I'll call it, a narrow yoke. So the waistband treatments are very different. Now this pair of pants is made out of Ponte knit, the regular mid-weight Ponte knit, and this pair is made out of the lightweight version of the same fabric. Ponte knits are something that have come on the scene recently, in recent years, and I don't know how many I mean when I say recent, but I'm going to say 10 years or something like that. You'll see the word Ponte, you'll see the word Ponte di Roma. Both of those are the same thing. Back at Kansas State University, back in the 60s, that word, for me, that word didn't exist at this point. We were talking about double knits. And now this is sort of a sexy word for a double knit. So these Pontes are double knits. They tend to, at least the mid-weight one, the more traditional one, tends to be more stable and not as much stretch as you think of for a lot of knits. And in the old days when I was sewing a lot of double knits, of course, those knits were made out of polyester. Well, now these Ponte knits are blended. And the ones that we carry are rayon, nylon, and spandex, whether it's the regular variation or version on the lightweight version. We have made the mistake early on of ordering Ponte knits that have polyester in them. And I soon found out in my very first pair that we didn't like that. There's a certain sound to that fabric. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's sort of irritating sound when it rubs together, but mostly that fabric pills. So if I were you, I would avoid Ponte di Romas that have polyester in it, and make sure you go with the rayon, nylon, and spandex. Coincidentally, we had a question earlier about, do we have a pattern for pedal pushers? Now, that's a term that, of course, I understand, being the age that I am, but not everybody knows what pedal pushers are. But they're just a shortened version of a pant, just right below the knee. In the Helix pants pattern, there's already a shorter view A, view B, I'm not sure which one it is, but there's a short version and a long version. So either you use the short version for your pedal pushers, or you even shorten that version with using our lengthen and shorten line to make them even shorter. So this is, either one can be pedal pushers, but just know that this one already has some shortening going on. The Helix pattern is a printed pattern, and we have it on special now for $18 rather than $22.95. All the sizes are included in the pattern. And the pencil pants are a download only pattern, and that pattern is on sale this week for $12, and it's normally $15. So this is a good chance for you to get a little bit of a bargain on those patterns. We also have lots of Ponte knits, the right ones, the rayon, the nylon, and the spandex, in both weights. In the lightweight, we have 4 or 5 colors. In the medium weight, we have 14 or 15 colors, broad range of colors. And those fabrics for the next week are going to be on sale for 15% off. If you use a code called KNITS, K-N-I-T apostrophe, all in caps, you will get your 15% off at checkout on the price of those Ponte knits. All right, so how do you tweak some of the fitting issues that go along with slim pants? So remember a couple of weeks ago, actually it was at the April 20th Facebook Live, we also have some of these fitting issues in our DIY pants fitting tutorial. Remember, I talked about, first of all, measuring the stride using the curve runner, marking the seam allowance on the pants, the finished seam allowance from seam allowance to seam allowance, and measuring both the front and the back to get the right dimension for the stride, and lengthening or shortening if needed. And we talked about a minor adjustment if you have a little bit of a full seat, and that was, so this is from 2 weeks ago, which you can go back and reference. But I thought you might want to know how to make an adjustment if you have an even fuller seat. So here's what you do. First of all, you have to know your measurements, and for a Ponte pant, you're going to want about a 1-inch amount of ease through the full hips. That's about all you need. So you would measure your hips and measure your pattern, and then compare the circumference and add 1 inch to your measurements, and then measure the pattern to make sure that that's going to go around you. But if it's not, here's how you do the full seat adjustment. 4 inches above the crotch point and 4 inches below the crotch point, you're going to draw lines that are perpendicular to the straight of grain, and you're going to cut out this entire wedge, and you're going to move this over. Now remember, you're just working with half of a pattern, so you're only going to move it 1/2 of the amount that you need. Let's say you need another inch. You're going to spread this by 1/2 inch so that you'll get a full inch by the time you cut, obviously, 2 backs. So this wedge has been moved over. I've inserted some paper in this 1/2 inch, and then I have to true up the curve of the crotch and restore the line of the legs. So these are the tools that I use. Remember, I use this hip curve, and I like the clear version of it, to blend the lines for getting back from the original crotch point back to, quickly actually, to the normal line, cutting line. And I can use this seam allowance curve runner to draw a new line to connect a nice smooth line to get rid of that offset. So that's on the back only. Now, a couple of other adjustments. There are a lot of people that have no seat. They're kind of flat. That's kind of me, actually. So I do this adjustment a lot, and I find that this is particularly useful in these 2 pants patterns. It's one thing to have a loose pant, like a West End pant or the Hudson pants that are more flowy. But when you have a pant that needs to really fit and hang well from the fullest part of your bottom, then these might be a couple of different alterations that you might consider. If you have a flat seat, then about where the notches are on the curve of the crotch seam, you want to fold this pattern. I have folded this pattern, in this case about 3/8 of an inch, and I have folded it at the center back, and I've tapered that to the side seam because I don't want to take out any of the distance of the side seam. And I've just folded that and taped it. So I've taken out about 3/4 of an inch of extra fabric at the center back. Now, I find that most people don't have to add that back in. If you think you do, you would add this back in at the top or perhaps at the hook. But I find that flat-seated people just need that gone, and then it doesn't need to be raised anyplace else. Another alteration that might have to happen is if there are wrinkles below the butt. And if wrinkles, you read the wrinkles in pants. And so if you have some pants and you can have somebody take a picture of you and you can see where the creases are, the creases point to where there's a problem. So this is another folding that would happen right below the stride line. This is again another 1/2 inch fold, 3/8 of an inch fold, 1/4 inch. It's not very much, but this is taking out fabric starting at the inner seam and again blending to the outer edge. You don't want to take out too much here. This does shorten the inseam on the back. I find that most of the time, if you're just doing 1/4 inch or 3/8 of an inch, you're going to be able to ease those 2 seams together. But if it gets to be more than this, you're going to have to add this length back at the bottom of the pants. So this is flat seat and wrinkles below the seat. 2 alterations for you. I know I have talked about this book before. I'm not sure I've shown it, and people still ask about it. But it's called The Perfect Fit. You can get it on most of the sites where you can buy your books. It's by Creative Publishing International out of Minneapolis, and I find it to be my favorite fitting book. And I would say most of what I've just talked about will be in this book. It'll also be in our fitting book that we're producing. If you're a member of So Confident 2020, you'll get your fitting book sometime this year, sooner rather than later, I hope. We're still working on it. But this book is a great fitting book. Also in my Sewing Knits Fit to Finish, I have a lot of fitting solutions for fitting knit pants in here as well. So you might want to check this out. This also talks about Ponte knits and all the range of knits, of which there are many, many. And of course lots and lots of techniques, including how to sew Ponte knits. So first of all, you're going to want to sew your knits with polyester thread. This is the one time you're not going to use cotton thread. You want the slight stretchability of the polyester thread, and you want the strength of polyester thread so that you won't get popped seams. And you're going to use a stitch length of about 2.4 millimeters. That is slightly dialed down from the 2.5 millimeter that is an automatic stitch length when I turn on my sewing machine. So if you can adjust your stitch length, I'd get it just a little bit smaller. The longer the stitch length, the more apt you're going to have puckers, and the more apt it's going to pop. So smaller stitch lengths are better on knits, but not too small either. You have to be able to rip them out, you know. So there are two seam finishes which I recommend on either one of these pants. Doesn't matter the weight of the Ponte, whether it's light or regular. And the first one is to just simply sew a seam and press it open. Ponte knits look really good unfinished on the edges. If you cut them out with a rotary cutter, you're going to get nice smooth edges, not choppy edges if you cut out with scissors. So just press it open. It presses nice, stays flat, doesn't curl. These double knits don't curl. Remember that. They're interlocks, so they don't curl like regular jerseys do. And you can leave it a full seam allowance, or you can just trim it away and have a little less seam allowance. The one that I probably use the most, though, for seam allowance finish is this one, where I'm using my polyester thread and sewing machine to sew a regular seam at 5/8 of an inch, and then I'm using my serger to serge both raw edges together, and I'm pressing the seam one direction. We've talked about the kinds of serger thread that I use. I use Isacord, it's really my favorite, and 3 thread. It's very fine, looks like silk, doesn't leave a big lump. And then I also like Mettler Ceracore, which comes on even bigger cones. So either one of these for serger. Don't use the really inexpensive serger thread that is fluffy and linty and is too thick. But always use a 3 thread stitch formation when you're finishing a seam. When you're doing this serging, you're going to cut off about 1/8 of an inch and leave about 1/2 an inch. If you cut more than that, you're going to get a lump at the sides, and particularly on these smooth finished Pontes. So leave that seam allowance a little bit wider. In fact, I'd rather you cut nothing off if you have a choice rather than too much. So just remember that. Okay. So, what do you wear with these pants? Well, let me back up just a little bit. I want to show you an example of how you can use Ponte knits in something else. And we have this very interesting knit. It's Ponte, but it's a twill Ponte, and it has a little bit of a sheen to it. And I'd never seen it before. We only have it in 2 colors. It only comes in 2 colors. This beautiful pale aqua color and a beautiful kind of denim blue. So look at that. It's included in our sale prices on our Ponte as well. But you can see how refined it is. Beautifully smooth. This is actually a raw edge on the seam, so you can see how smooth that seam edge is, and you can do overlapping raw edge seams on the Ponte as well if you prefer that. So don't forget the twill Ponte. You also can make a dress or a skirt. This is the lightweight Ponte, and you can see how drapey the fabric is in the lightweight. In fact, you can even really pick that up on the pants. This is the lightweight Ponte, and you can see it's draping differently than the more stable midweight. So if you have some, I'm sure you don't, but just in case you have a few little lumps and bumps on your thighs, Well, you might want to consider the mid-weight Ponte rather than the lightweight, because this does show through some things, and the regular mid-weight Ponte tends to disguise things a little bit better. All right, so back to what you're going to wear with either one of these pants. For a knit top, I recommend the Ivy. I love this pattern. Whoa, I see our air conditioning is working this morning. Right below here. How about over here? All right, so you can have some fun with this pattern. You can use a combination of different fabrics. And we give you the yardage on the back of the pattern envelope for what each of these sections takes. It even has a little section on just one sleeve and not the other sleeve. I put together a little combination of fabrics that I thought would be really fun. This beautiful cherry red for the body of the garment, and maybe this fantastic arabesque sort of paisley design for a little bit of insert, and a tone-on-tone stripe for the bottom skirt portion of this. So think about the Ivy. It also comes with another pattern with it. But Ivy and, I can't even remember the other one. Ivy and Odette. Odette and Ivy is the name of the pattern. All right. Then I like the idea of the splice top with it. This is in linen, and this is the one that has the interesting splices on the sides. So I think the general idea of what to wear with either one of these pants is to have something that's a little more fitted on top, and then a little fuller through the hips, and a little bit longer, maybe to the top of the upper thigh, or just above that a little bit. You don't want things too long, but you don't want them too short. These slim pants act a little bit like leggings. They're not quite that slim, of course, but you want slim, and then you want a little bit of volume on top. So the splice, which is a download pattern. You can do the Frankie. This was done in a border print, which is always fun. So that means it was cut on the cross grain, which is perfectly legit if the fabric has the same characteristic when you're hanging it both lengthwise and crosswise. So the Frankie has an interesting detail in the back, nice full pleat, and these great diagonal lines. So it's a really fun sew. And it also has this very unique sleeve, a two-piece sleeve with the seam actually in the front. I like the idea of a solid color and linen, and of course when linens are washed, most linens when they're washed, not all of them, they become very soft and really great to wear. Of course you have to like the wrinkles of linen. I happen to love them, but do some big buttons that are kind of a feature and have some fun with the London. This is a quick sew, really easy to make, and just a great, nice, big shirt to wear with skinny pants. I like the idea of the Florence with it. Again, a very traditional shirt fit on top through the bust and shoulders and sleeve, but then it a little bit of an A-line, and this pleat at the bottom creates this nice tuck and what I call hitch at the bottom of the garment. It has a nice placket in the back and yoke. So lots of buttons, but these don't have to button. You just have to sew on the buttons. No buttonholes there. Last week we talked about and introduced the Venice shirt, and I think it's a great combination with either one of these pant styles as well. This is the one that has the ruffle on the front that goes around to the back. This fabric, by the way, we did just run out of, but we have another batch of this fabric coming in, and I'm really crazy about this. It should be here anytime, actually. But it's rayon, so it's super drapey, has a wonderful soft feel to it. It's a great summer weight. You could shorten the sleeves on this garment if you want it to be even more summer weight. And of course, last week we showed the Venice sleeveless as well. So you don't have to have the long sleeves for summer if that's the climate that you live in. All right. I'm going to back up, sort of, although I guess I'm not backing up, because this is another garment that you can actually wear with the pants. And it's an oldie but goodie. It is the Chopin blouse. The Chopin, we've had it a while. We only have a few patterns left. but we have it on special for $8. And so it's sort of a first come, first serve on this. We're going to run out, I'm sure, within days. But nevertheless, it's been one of my favorite patterns for a long time. If you make it up just like the pattern, you're going to get the ruching at the collar and on the cuff. This has sort of an Edwardian look to it. There's shaping to it. There's a pocket right here. So this is a second layer overlay on the front. And then the back has a waist seam and this tuxedo, I call it, jacket type inverted pleat and swooping hemline. Now, I just want to talk about fabric for just a second. I made this garment a while back. I don't remember that I've ever worn it. I may have worn it a time or two. It's been in our archives, which is the basement, for a few years. There's no sunlight down there at all, only fluorescent lights. And I want to show you that this has faded across the hanger line. This is silk dupioni. This is a fabric that I know you're tempted to use a lot, but you just know that silks, and particularly silk dupioni, because it's not a fine silk, it's made with short staples. All of the raw silks really are like that. Silk matka, silk noil, silk dupioni, silk shantung, all of those are made with short staple yarns, and therefore they're not as good a quality as other silks, and they can fade. So, you know, this is closet fade, which is really too bad, but I'm just warning you, it's not a fabric that I recommend for a long-lasting garment. The Chopin also looks good without all the ruching, so you can eliminate the collar, you can eliminate the ruching on the cuff, and it's really just a great, nice shirt. This is made in silk Charmeuse. Nice and drapey. And then Kathy, who you saw a couple of weeks ago, made this one in a shorter version. Or did you make it, Erin? Can't remember.
I made a different one.
Okay, right. I didn't make it. But you can see how this overlay can be contrasted with some fun prints. And the collar is there. Again, no ruching. The whole garment's been shortened. And either the long or the short works really well with these pants. So don't forget it's a print pattern, so don't forget the Chopin pattern, on sale for $8 for as long as they last. All right, do we have questions?
We do.
All right.
Which pants do you recommend for a curvy figure with large thighs?
I wonder if the question is about which of these two pants, or just generally.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe,
the question is, what pant do I recommend for a curvy figure with larger thighs? You know, I have fit these pants on a lot of people who have come here for So Kansas workshops, and these pants can be fit to any body. It's just a matter of measuring the areas that are problem areas and adjusting for a fuller thigh, which is another alteration which we could talk about in a future date. But my husband just knocked at the door. We're going to let him in. All right. Anyway, now I can't remember what I was talking about. But in terms of other patterns that we have that have the ability to fit a larger thigh, that would be our Hudson pants, which you can make in a Ponte knit, by the way, and the West End pants, also in a Ponte knit, and both of those would accommodate a fuller thigh and a curvier figure out of the package.
Okay. Another question, and talks about the alterations you were doing. How far across the pants do you cut out for the fuller seat? So maybe how far do you go across?
Oh, how far across do you go for the fuller seat? You go to the center of the pants. So you find the center of the leg, and that's your cutting line. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Another question. Would you make a muslin, either of the, I assume the pants here, would you make a muslin?
All right, I really meant to address that. That's a very good question. Would I make a muslin of these? You have to make a muslin out of a similar stretch fabric, and that's Ponte. So maybe this is the time where you go to the other store and buy the less expensive Ponte knit that probably has polyester in it. and make yourself a test pair. And then once you have the fit for that, then you can invest in your $24 minus 15% Ponte. But you're not going to be able to make a true muslin out of muslin fabric for these pants. You're going to have to make a muslin out of a similar, if not the same fabric.
Okay, I don't really like the feel of rayon, or I really like the feel of rayon Ponte, but I don't like close-fitting pants. Could you make a drapey pant using the Ponte?
Absolutely. You can use Ponte knits for our Hudson pants, our West End pants, our pants that are coming up in our So Confident program in a couple of months. Any other pants that... the Valencia pants would be great. Really, any of our pants patterns would be great in Ponte knits, now that I think about it. Yeah.
And if you wash it, it gets really drapey.
Yeah, if you wash it, it tends to get a little bit drapier. Mm-hmm. By the way, the lightweight Ponte does shrink, and I have not found that the midweight Ponte shrinks. Go figure.
Okay, is the twill Ponte the same weight as the regular, like, midweight Ponte?
Yeah, the twill Ponte is the same weight as the regular Ponte. It just has a little more of a sheen and a little more of a texture difference, but they, side by side, you can't tell the difference in the thickness or the weight.
Do the Helix and Pencil pants use the same basic draft?
No, they're drafted differently. Different crotch shape, they're different. I find that one usually fits somebody differently than the other. It's subtle, but like the Helix pants fit me a little bit better. I'm a little bit flatter in the back. And the pencil pants have a little more fullness in the back.
Can you point out the two different pants again and face the mic and so they know which is the Helix and which is
All right, so this is the Helix pants made in the midweight knit. This is the pencil pants made in the lightweight Ponte. Lightweight Ponte, midweight Ponte, Helix, printed pattern, pencil, download pattern.
Let's see. Which material do you suggest for a curvy, a more curvy body?
What material do I suggest for a more curvy body? That would be the regular midweight Ponte knit or the twill Ponte, not the lightweight. Now, I say that if you made the West End pants, for example, our wide leg pants that are fuller in a lightweight Ponte, you'd be great. But something that's slim fitting, that's going to fit your body, you're probably going to prefer the Ponte knit for a curvy body.
Could you use the Picasso pant waist on the Hudson pant? Probably the flat.
You know, that's a good question. Can you use the Picasso waist on the Hudson pants? I've tried that and it didn't work, and I can't tell you why. So the answer is no.
Okay. Talked about everything here.
All right. So I love all your questions. I learn a lot from the questions. I'm thinking about doing a Facebook Live of just your questions. So if you have questions in the next week or so, why don't you email Betsy, B-E-T-S-Y, at sewingworkshop.com, or post them on Facebook. And we might do just a whole separate section or session on Facebook Live of just question and answers. But I do like to sort of begin and end with some questions as well. So anytime you have questions, just email us, call us, whatever. We'll be happy to let you know. Yes, one
more, if we could. Can you talk about the waistband treatment on the pencil pants?
Yeah, the waistband treatment, this has a 1.5-inch casing, so it's a completely folded over casing. And inside of this is a 3/4-inch piece of elastic that's been zigzagged to the back side of the casing. So 3/4-inch elastic in a 1.5-inch casing. So there's nothing in this lower half.
And talk a little bit about your jacket.
Oh, I have on the opal jacket. And this is a knit, a double knit. It's not a Ponte, but it could be, I think. In fact, it would be great in a Ponte. But this is a double knit, so it's two-sided, has a light side and a dark side. It has a wonderful little lapel, has a dart that comes from the side seam and ends, so that then that forms this little tuck and pleat. 3 buttons. The sleeve in the back is all part of the side back, and then the front has just a half front sleeve. It's really interesting to make. This is my new favorite pattern for just a casual throw-on little jacket. I love it.
If my waistband tends to roll, what do you recommend?
If your waistband tends to roll, we use a Stretch Right non-roll elastic, 1 inch. I haven't had trouble with that elastic rolling. It possibly is the type of elastic you're using. If you're using a knit elastic or some other sort of sew-in elastic that's very soft, you might switch to the 1 inch elastic from Stretch Right non-roll.
And what does the back side of the twill ponte look like?
The back side of the twill ponte is a matte finish. It looks just like the front except for the sheen. It just looks the same.
Mm-hmm.
All right, remember that you use the code capital letters KNITS exclamation point for your discount on your fabrics, and remember the promotions on the pattern sales as well. And again, I thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.